Welcome back to part 2 of our previous mix comparison. Paul and I have mixed a track which was featured on the latest season of the Kardashians on the Hulu TV channel. That's a mouthful for me. So it's a great track and it's produced by my friend Bobby, whose producer name is Mason Blue, and he is one half of the Sonictron duo. Sorry, Sonictronic is a brand of microphones. Sonictron duo, and today we are going to have the pleasure of Bobby's company. We're going to pick his brains about how he's produced the track, mixed the track for the release that has now been heard by millions of people, I assume. And he is going to give us feedback on the revisions that Paul and I have gone away and done, similarly to how we did with Marv, if you tuned into that episode. So we're going to have lots to cover in this episode with audio examples sporadically interspersed throughout the track. So can we introduce Bobby, or Mason Blue?
Oi, oi, oi.
So, Bobby, firstly, how did you get into production? Because you've arrived, I know you're a singer and we've worked together in that context, but you've arrived at this incredible production. And when you said Tiesto, I was like, okay, I think I know where he's going with this. And I listened to some Tiesto in the gym and I was like, yes, I can hear the influence. What was the influence behind this track? Because I believe you were aiming it for sync.
Yeah, well, it's, first of all, hey guys, thanks so much for having me. Speaking from my home studio here in West London. And the inspiration behind the track, oh my God, I mean, to be honest, we had so many different things that we spoke about. Basically, my music partner, Gloria, aka Skylar, came to me one day. She was like, I want to write a song about fashion and I want to write in Italian because she's half Italian, half German. And I was like, sure, let's do it. She wanted to tap a bit more into her upbringing, into her culture. And we just started like listening to various music, various dance tracks and watching like various scenes from different TV shows because she knew she wanted to pitch it for the Kardashians. And she kind of manifested in a way, which is like the coolest thing about this song in particular. I always say this to people. It kind of came to be the song it is, and it went on the Kardashians in such a like universal way because she knew what she wanted to do with it, and we pitched it to the agency that pitched to the Kardashians, and the rest was history. So the inspiration was pretty much like songs that've got this sort of electronic pop sound, dance sound, but at the same time I got inspired by the sort of Vogue culture when it comes to these sort of tracks, because we wanted the track to have this sort of confident, empowering feel, like kind of sassy as well, the way she delivered the vocals, because it was so important for us to have this sort of personality in the song, because it's quite a minimalistic production and it's an intentional minimalist approach to the song, because we wanted to accentuate the storytelling element and the driving bass line in the song. And as I mentioned to you, like Tiesto and Charlie XX was like one of the references that I had in mind whilst I was producing it, because I really like the punchy drums, the big low end, and like this sort of pumping feeling when I listen to the track. And it was one of the goals that I had for myself as a producer of the song, to make it quite bouncing, quite punchy at the same time. And yeah, hopefully I managed to fulfill that.
So what's your background in production? How did you get into producing and writing?
Oh God, that's a long story in itself. So for your viewers, they don't know me yet, I was born in Bulgaria and I was born in a small town and moved to the UK 10 years ago, back in 2015. 10 years this year. And when I was back home, I took part in the X Factor back in 2011 and I got signed to a label there, and I worked with these guys quite extensively for 3 years, and it was great. It was my first proper introduction to the music industry and to the music business, to be quite honest, to see how things work and how people think and how songs are being made. So it was a very, very cool experience. And I was so young at the time, to be honest. I was like seeing everything through like pink glasses and everything was like beautiful and life was glamorous. Anyway, and I came to a point where I would talk to them and they would like put me in the room with like different people to like work on music, but then I would want to express myself creatively and to put my ideas forward for what I had in mind. And at one point I started getting a bit creatively frustrated and I was like, I need to have this sort of creative outlet to put my ideas in a file or on the door or any sort of medium, just to communicate what I want and how I hear it in my head. And it was around the age of 16, 17 when I started dabbling with production and writing and starting to learn more about songs and song structures and how sounds communicate with one another and what makes songs. And I remember and I still do it up to these days, I remember being obsessed with listening to popular song stems and how they were created and why a certain sound is there, why this particular tone/texture of the sound. I remember listening to a lot of the Ariana Grande songs back in the day, produced by Max Martin, Aaliyah, and all these OGs in the production worlds, because I'm heavily influenced by them as a producer and the way I approach music. And it was a massive sort of learning curve for me to listen to the way these tracks were produced and, as I said, how they came to life. So production kind of came to me via the creative need to express myself, and then I started producing songs for myself, and then later in life started exploring working with other people and to basically share my creative vision with other people.
Wow, this is quite interesting because Paul and I are not really in the production world. We've produced our own tracks respectively, which I think is easier than trying to produce for other people because you have a sound and you hear it and you can try and get it out. But yeah, the depths at which you've gone to are a lot more extreme than where we have gone. So from the last episode, I have two burning questions, one of which I've just forgotten. But the one that's in my mind is the mix down that you sent us, was that the mix that went to mastering or were there changes made?
It was not actually.
Okay, I thought that.
I gave you quite a lot of creative freedom, let's put it this way, because I have had instances where I've sent stuff to mixing engineers in the past and they've asked me to remove processing on stems just to kind of allow them to create what they want to create by providing them with my reference mix. So a lot of the sounds that you heard were not the actual final sounds that were part of the song, just because.
And what we didn't do was come back to you and say, "Hey, what you've done is really cool. Can we have that?"
Yeah, get the stem.
Which
hey,
we've
give me the
done
stem.
in the past, but for whatever reason we didn't on this one. So our apologies for that.
It's so good. I mean, as I said, I just wanted to give you a cleaner slate to work with what you've got. For example, the kick drum I sent you wasn't the final kick drum that was used in the track. It had quite a lot of coloring on it, let's put it this way. The way it was shaped, it was punchier than what it was the stem I sent you in the folder. Yeah, I just wanted to allow you to apply yourself to the song, because I feel like that's the cool thing when it comes to mixing, because it's such an art in itself and it allows people to put their spin on it, which you guys did, and it was such a banging job what you've done with the mix downs and everything. It was such a joy to listen to how your brains thought as well, how you painted the whole track and the vocals in it. It's it's so cool to hear that people actually texted my music partner Gloria, who sang on the song, and I sent her the mix, and I was like, what do you think? What do you think about these mix downs? Because obviously she's heard what I've done, and I wanted her to be part of this sort of process.
Oh, cool. What does she think then?
She really liked them. Similar to myself, she was fascinated with the way you guys have done it and how you've put different elements in certain spaces and what you've accentuated and what you focused on. That might have been, let's say, different to what I've got. For example, I remember listening to your mix, Ed, and I was listening to the backing vocals, for example, the la 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 in the chorus when she sings Mi piace la moda, and you've made them slightly more subdued, and I was like, okay, he's probably thought of them as less important than the lead vocal, but from my point of view, they were part of the lead vocal because they were supporting the message of the whole thing. So again, it's super interesting to give you that sort of clean slate and allow you to work your magic on it.
Cool. Which we're going to talk about the differences between the ones everyone listening has heard last week and the revisions that we've done for this week, which we are going to hear. But the second question was, which is the burning one, what did you do to the bass?
Yeah.
Because we couldn't reverse engineer, although I did notice on Paul's revision he's got pretty close, to be fair.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's strange then, because there was a whooshy thing that you had, and I said to Ed, I was like, I cannot recreate it, and I didn't want to go too far because I was like, I'm losing perspective. This entire mix is about the bass now. But yeah, you did something really nice, and I could not recreate it at all.
It's so funny though, because it's quite complex bass, if I can express it that way, because it's got a few different layers to it. And I remember watching your episode from last week, and I remember you saying that you struggle with the bass, and it's such an important element of the song just because of that sort of minimalistic approach. And you guys mentioned that the bass had quite a lot of mid-range in it.
Yeah.
And it's so nice to actually hear you pick on this, because it was intentional, just because, again, it was mainly drums and bass in the verses. And when I was producing, I was thinking, God, I need to fill this sort of space because I ain't got any other elements that are doing anything there, just because I didn't want to like make the track too busy, because that's the whole beauty of these sort of fashionista tracks. They're not too busy. They're all about the attitude and the drums and bass, and allowing the tracks to bounce. But going back to your question about the bass, I actually opened my Logic file, producing Logic, and I've seen, like, I've got the main bass, which is playing what it's playing, but then I've got another layer that I've basically high passed, and I've made stereo, especially in the drop. I wanted the drop to feel bigger when she goes into the drop part. So yeah, it's one of the things I've done there. And I've got some bass elements in there, just like they're more textures rather than bass lines, just to keep it interesting. And the bass has got like a lot of side chain, because again, similar to like what I mentioned from before, I wanted the bass to be quite bouncy, and to have this sort of movement and weave in between the kick. So
I think if there's any processing on it, and you fancy sharing a screenshot, our audience are going to love to see what you've done. If you have the plugins up on the channel in the session.
To go a little bit more into detail about the sidechain, was it, say, a simple kick to sidechain, a kick to bass sidechain like we normally do, or was it a little bit more of a technical sidechain? Because it doesn't sound like to me that it's just like, you know, like the bass is dropping down to let the kick in. It sounds like there's like a whoosh thing. So I'm just like, was it more of a technical sidechain, or was it just like a normal?
Did you use envelope filters or transient taping?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm just looking at what I've done just to remind myself of what I've done with
it was
the bass,
300
to be
tracks
honest.
ago I did this.
I had to open the project file just to remind myself what I've worked on, because I knew you're going to grill me with these questions. But I remember I've used C1 compressor from Waves just to sidechain the bass to the kick, and I've done it quite aggressively. So it's not just a mild sidechain. It's
that could be it, Ed. Because when me and Ed sidechain, it's normally the Jason Joshua Soothe thing, where you don't really notice the sidechain, the bass ducking. So if you've made it quite aggressive, that'd actually make quite a lot of sense.
Is it with quite a slow release as well, which gives it the kind of pumping feel?
That'd make sense.
So, for example, when I go to the main bass, the release is actually like 50 milliseconds. It's not like too intense. The attack's quite quick as well. I've got threshold down to like -24, and I've increased the makeup a little bit as well, just to make up for what's lost in the process. But yeah, I think that's the main takeaway, that it's quite an aggressive sort of approach to sidechain, just because I wanted it to get out of the way of the kick while still communicating with it and keeping it bouncy. And I like the way it sounded. Some of your viewers might disagree with this approach, because everyone does things differently, especially when it comes to production. I think it's like just a matter of taste, and at that particular moment I was like, I'm not feeling this bass.
I liked it. I did like it, yeah.
What I found interesting was you chose to manipulate the sound and the feel and the texture of the bass to fill out the space, rather than add in another instrument, which would have, for me, been the logical and easiest thing to do. If you were thinking, right, we've got bass and drums, I need something mid-rangey, a synth pad or a guitar or an arpeggiated thing, for me would have been the obvious thing, but you've just embraced the bass and used all your production and clearly, high mixing skills to create this thing that just is the groove and the movement in the track, which is great.
Thank you. Do you want me to tell you why though? I when I first started producing, I'm sure that a lot of people are guilty of this. I will put a lot of elements in songs, a lot of instruments, a lot of different parts, because I always think it needs to sound big, it needs to sound epic, it needs to like have the oomph, it needs to like grow.
And you know what he's going to say, Paul. You know what he's heading. Less is more, right?
Yeah. Less is more, honestly, like
in production as well. Amazing.
And over the last few years, one thing that's really changed in the way I produce songs is I try to work with less elements and to make them work creatively instead of trying to add more elements, if that makes sense. Because like, even listening to pop music these days, it can be so minimalistic, and I listen to it and I'm like, how do they make it sound so big? Like, what's happening here that's making this track work? And you just like listen, even going back to the stems thing that I mentioned earlier, you listen to stems and you hear how rich, let's say, a bass stem is, and like it's got such like mid-range in there, and it really fills the space, and it doesn't need any other elements in there just because it leaves space for the vocals. And then you got your percussive elements and other synths they want to play on top of that. And it's really been a game changer for me, and especially working on tracks in the sync space, because sync isn't always about like a lot of elements in the song space. It could be more minimalistic, but still works for this.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Let's definitely come back to the sync thing, because I have questions on that. But I think just to recap on that, the inspiration for me for simplicity and sparseness is anything Tina Turner did. It was bass, drums, maybe a guitar and a synth, and then her vocal. And obviously Clear Mountain mixing everything, which transcends decades and technology. It's unbelievable. But the simplicity of it, and it just sounds massive. So, yeah, less is more in everything. Unless you're simple. Anyway, let's move on. So let's move on to hearing some audio examples, because we would like to pick your brains about what you wanted in the revision process from each of us. Let's have a quick recap of mine and Paul's first mixes. We'll just play like a verse and a chorus, and then tell us from each of us what you wanted, and then we can have a listen to some of the afters and play more of it as we go.
Non importa chi sei, basta che abbia cash. Mi piace la moda, la 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 la. Dior, cavalli, Prada, la 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 la. Gucci, glam, tacchi, via, ciao. Sono arrivata, miau. Puro lusso, sei mio. Bling bling bling, non importa costo, cliccaci. Il nuovo ritmo che clicchi dalla fotocamera era prepara le carpet. Diamanti il mio target. Non mi fermerai, it's all mine. Mi piace la moda. Non importa chi sei, basta che abbia cash. Mi piace la moda, la 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 la. Dior, cavalli, Prada, la 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 la. Gucci, glam, tacchi, via, ciao. Sono arrivata, miau. Puro lusso, sei mio. Bling bling bling, non mi importa costo, cliccaci. Il nuovo ritmo che clicchi dalla fotocamera era preparare carpet. Diamanti il mio target. Non mi fermerai, it's all mine. Mi piace la moda.
So, Bobby, what was it about my mix that you wanted changing, improved, and how did you envisage it compared to the release version?
So when I first listened to your mix, one thing that I really wanted to like come forward a bit more was like the relationship between the drums and bass. I really like the way you approached the bass, but I guess I needed the drums to be slightly punchier, just because again that's how I envision them to sound in the first place. I really liked your mix overall and how you've shaped all the elements and how you've glued them together. it was mainly about the drums because they were like the sort of the focus of this particular track. And then when I listened to your revision, like I could definitely like tell you've reworked the drums and they like were more prominent and more like they were punchier. And so it was very great to hear this. And then the vocals was another thing for me. For example, the backing vocals and the ad libs, just because I, as a producer, I'm quite obsessed with vocal production and vocal arrangements as well. Obviously, coming from singing background, it's kind of like a no-brainer.
I should have clocked that.
Yeah,
Oh, you should have, yeah. Rookie mistake.
And this is a lesson learned. Know your audience. Yeah.
that's all right, no problem. Again, I just gave a clean slate. I said nothing. Don't hate me.
No,
Peace.
this is all great, super productive. This is why we're doing it, so we're all learning.
The vocal production for me was like a big thing for this song, just because I really tried to like play with textures, not just performance-wise, but production-wise as well, just in post-production, I mean. And I really like tried to place BVs and ad-libs in different spaces. For example, making ad-libs like wetter and kind of like ethereal, just to make the track bigger without adding more elements. Again, going back to the less is more approach, and then it was nice to hear that in the second mix you've addressed that, and there were more sort of textures to the vocals, because we try to basically fill the space with like ad libs and like shouts here and there, or just like some sort of exclamations. Like I'm trying to remember, like when before the song goes into the drop, she says something like "Sono la star," and I think it means like I'm the star or something like this. Because I was like, just give me a line here, as a connection between these two sections, because I didn't want to go down the standard approach of like, I don't know, adding tom fills or snare fills or something like that. I just kind of wanted it to be like more of a minimalistic thing, and then the vocals kicked in, and then I made this super wet because I was like, I want it to feel like you've come from a different dimension, and then the track comes back into the present state.
This is fascinating hearing your thought process behind all these details.
Because one thing Ed said about mine, he was like, it's too wet. Like my spike stent mixes and stuff, they're super, super, super dry. But then obviously that kind of contrasts kind of what you were saying there.
Again, it's just like stylistic choice, and I, as I say, I'm super obsessed with vocal production, and I always spend a lot of time listening to vocals and how they sit, and sometimes I come back to a mix I'm doing and I'm like, I don't like this. I think I told you this like a few days ago, Ed, when we were talking on Instagram, and I was like, I've been mixing this like 3 days and I'm not happy with it.
That recent track you're working on, I've got that feeling at the moment with one of my own.
It's just part of the process, isn't it? We're all going through it. But going back to the track, it was nice to hear that you had addressed the vocals, and they sounded super nice in the versions as well. And I really liked the mid range as well of the song they've added with the mix, which was super cool, because one thing I've like started really paying attention to is the mid range of the songs, because I will mix something and I'm listening to, let's say, louder, but then I'll try to like turn the volume down and listen. Do elements come through? Like, are they loud enough if they've been listened to like quieter, which is something that I did not used to at all. And I'll listen to my mixes afterwards and I'll be like, why does it sound so empty? Do you know what I mean?
I'm sure Paul has questions about your monitoring, which we can get onto later as well.
Actually, you're crazy. That's actually about 2 seconds ago. I was like, oh yeah, I'll need to ask about his monitoring.
Because we haven't picked the brains of a producer regarding monitoring yet, because it's been so integral to our journey to developing.
Totally.
So let's quickly have a listen to my revision, and then people can hear what's changed and evolved and hopefully sounding better.
Non importa chi sei, basta che abbia cash. Mi piace la moda, la 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 la. Dior, cavalli, Prada, la 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 la. Gucci, glam, tacchi, via, ciao. Sono arrivata, miau. Puro lusso, sei mio. Bling bling bling. Non mi importa costo, piccacci. È il nuovo ritmo, click click click. Dalla fotocamera era preparare carpet. Diamanti il mio target. Non mi fermerai, it's all mine. Mi piace la moda, so mai. Mi piace la moda, la 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 la. Dior, cavalli, Prada, la 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 la. Sfilano solo per me, poi mi tengo tutto io per me. Bling a tutto spiano, la 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 la. VIP ci siamo, la 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 la. Seta sulla pelle, come le modelle. Sono la star.
The Working Audio Tools podcast is brought to you in association with our friends at DistroKid for all of your musical distribution needs. Don't forget, you can't just upload your songs to Amazon, Spotify, iTunes, or Tidal. You have to go through a music distribution service. There are many out there, but DistroKid is the one that Paul and myself use. They don't take any of your royalties. You keep 100% of the streaming revenue that you earn. For just $1.92 a month or $22.99 a year, you can upload unlimited songs. Your lyrics can be found in Google and other places. You get the blue Spotify verified checkmark, and you can create royalty splits between yourselves and fellow contributors. You also get access to the new DistroKid iPhone app for editing and uploading songs and accessing your statistics on the move. There are plenty of other tools available on DistroKid. We'll go through those in another section. All right, so moving on to Paul's revisions. What did you want or need from Paul? Because in the email you sent both of us, Paul's revision notes were like, yeah, just, it's fine. and this was the one where I got the list of things that needed changing.
I tried to make him quite balanced in terms of feedback, because I was like, I don't want him to think like I prefer one or the other. Do you know what I mean? Because I like both, and that, again, that's the beauty of mixing, because like everyone will do it in a different way. So I wasn't expecting like both of you to like sound the same, which it shouldn't be the case, because obviously everyone needs to have their own sort of signature sound.
We've tried for 2 years to meet in the middle, and it just doesn't work. We keep coming close and then going in around.
I know.
Yeah.
God, the balance in your relationship. Love it. Going back to Paul's mix, I remember listening to it, and one section that really stood out to me from your mix was a pre-chorus, because I really like the way you've mixed the elements, because in the pre-chorus you've got a synth part that kind of plays these 60 notes, which is again an important one for me in terms of like the mid-range, just because it's more subdued. I filtered it out quite a lot. And then the brass, which is like the driving element of the song. And I really like the way you shape these and the way you've put the vocals in there. Because when I listen to songs, one thing that I really like about, I don't know, dance and pop music is the fact that it sounds so big at the same time, but the vocals are like coated in the mix and you can still hear them, even though there's like a lot of different elements. And this is one thing that really like stood out to me listening to your mix.
Yeah, Paul's really good at that. It's annoying. Because I can't.
It was really good, yeah. I was like, come on, sir, come through. And then I think similar to Ed, I just mentioned things about like the vocals and the ad-libs that I kind of wanted them to come through more. And one thing I remember listening to in particular was the bass. I don't know what it was, but I remember listening to the bass in your mix, and it kind of sounded like it was sustaining a bit too long, and it was creating some sort of atonal discrepancies in there that was kind of like clashing with the rest of the instruments. And I was like, is it just me hearing this, or I don't know, my ears have probably gone messed up. And I think that's probably part of the reason why I was like, can we probably try and make the bass a bit like carved and kind of like make it dance around the kick a bit more, so it's not making everything muddy when it comes to the low end. And then in the revised mix that you sent me, that was definitely way better.
Yeah, because I think what I did wrong with the first mix was because I was so distracted by the master, because I listened to the master first. It sounded to me like your bass is very mono, where in the master it sounded like they widened the bass to my ears. So I was like, oh, okay, a little bit of stage one in here, and I think I just went too far. And I think I'd widened the bass so much that I kind of lost track of the groove, because if you widen the bass too much, then you can kind of lose it. So I think I'd kind of maybe lost it a bit, and then because I wasn't sure what you'd done, I was like, I could hear bits of saturation in there, I thought. So I was like, went with saturation, and I think I just did too much to it. So in the revised mix, I ended up taking the bass width down a lot to bring it more mono, which will probably then bring it more in line with the kick. So I think I did a bit of a better job in the second one, but I think if we would have had your bass that you had, me and Ed probably would have just stuck to it, because when you said Ariana Grande, I was like, oh, okay, that makes a bit of sense, because as soon as you said that, there's a reference track that I use all the time. It's a Serbian mix, and it's a Break Up With Your Girlfriend, I'm Bored, and that's got that very kind of big mono low end with sometimes I find the hi-hats are maybe just a little bit too loud, but it makes sense because it's reminiscent of your mix. Quite prominent hi-hats, kind of top ends there, big, kind of like mono, kind of low end with everything else sitting around it. So if I would have probably knew that, I probably wouldn't have widened the bass, even listening to the master if I would have knew that. Because if I would have knew the Ariana Grande thing was your thing, I would have probably made the bass even more mono. But, hindsight's 20/20, isn't it?
Okay, Paul, lesson learned for these exercises from our point of view. We need to get 3 reference tracks from every artist and producer we're getting on the tracks. Yep.
Yeah, I agree.
Moving forward.
I agree.
No, smashed it, guys, honestly. And it's kind of weird giving feedback on people's mixes, do you know what I mean? Because I feel like I'm critiquing your work and I'm like...
That's the point.
It feels a bit...
That's the point, yeah.
Maybe don't be brutal, but be honest. I mean, we had a guy called Mark from Present Day Production who came on and said to me, Ed, your mix was the worst we heard. And they did a public mix competition on their YouTube channel. And they said, yeah, Ed, yours was the worst we had. And then we'd done a revision and then came on and said, Ed, you nailed it. This is now the best we've had. So
it's important. 100%, yeah.
Yeah,
man.
Sometimes you need those painful experiences to evolve, and Paul and I have had a lot of those on the way on this journey.
100%. I can so relate to this. Like, I remember like years ago, I sent some tracks that I was working on for myself as the artist to my best friend who has got a very good ear for music and how things should sound, and I always trust him with like music and even life lessons when I'm going through, like, say, a tough patch, and I'm like, can you like give me advice on things? Anyway, and I was sending him the tracks I was working on at that time, and there were like 5 or 6 tracks, and he came back to me saying, do you want my honest opinion, or should we change the topic?
Yeah. Do you want my when somebody says to you, do you want my honest opinion, it's time to
change
buckle
the
up.
topic.
Buckle up.
Wow.
Honestly,
Okay. Are you still friends?
I felt like, of course we are. That's why we work so well as friends. Like, he's like my brother, to be honest, because I know he'll always be so brutally honest with me, and he's helped me grow so much.
That's like me and Paul.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. You gotta have people like that in your life, because otherwise it's really hard to be objective and to have this sort of clear understanding of where you are.
Yeah, and,
do you know
and
what I
it's
mean?
really annoying. I remember auditioning for, when I was 25, I think I auditioned for about 25 different original bands, tours and artists and things. And I was getting the gigs that I realised I didn't want, and then not getting the ones I wanted. And I was asking everyone, why did the person who got the gig get the gig? What did they have? What was different? Nobody would tell me anything. I was like, I'm screaming to get better here. I need to know what the missing pieces are. And it was infuriating. And we've found it's a bit more of an American thing. The British thing is a shit sandwich. Like, hey, you did this well. By the way, this was rubbish, but this was good. Whereas our Americans are like, oh, it's great, man. It's great. And they won't say anything. It's like, you can't just tell me it's great, because it's not. There's problems. I'm hearing things, but I don't know how to fix them. Can you give me feedback? So to have those people around you, as we've discussed in previous episodes recently about mentors, even if it is just a friend or an accountability buddy like me and Paul, effectively we're mentoring each other, I think. Having that person to say, do you know what? Actually, that's where the growth is.
This is my mix, the revised mix of, and I'm going to say it right, Mi Piace, La Moda. I said it right, didn't I?
Good.
Yes.
I remember listening to Ed pronouncing it in your episode, and I was cackling. I was like, I hope no Italians hear this, because they'll cancel this podcast.
I have one Italian friend who will probably listen to this, and he hasn't commented yet.
Yeah,
So,
it was the Moda for me.
Oh, was it that?
So how should it be?
Mi piace la moda.
La Moda, that's it. Mi Piace La Moda, that's it. You said Moda,
that's
didn't
it.
you? Well, here we go. This
I
is
tried,
my
that's
mix
all that
of
counts.
Mi Piace la Moda.
Non importa chi sei, basta che abbia cash. Mi piace la moda, la 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 la. Dior, cavalli, Prada, la 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 la. Gucci, glam, tacchi, via, ciao. Sono arrivata, miau. Puro lusso, sei mio. Bling bling bling. Non mi importa costo quei cacci. È un nuovo ritmo click click click. Dalla fotocamera era preparare carpet. Diamanti il mio target. Non mi fermerai. It's all mine. Mi piace la moda. Dior, cavalli, Prada. Sfilano solo per me. Poi mi tengo tutto io per me. Sono la star. Yeah, 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 yeah. Preparare carpet. Diamanti il mio target. Non mi fermerai. It's all mine. Mi piace la moda. La 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 la. Dior, cavalli, Prada. La 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 la. Sfilano solo per me. Poi mi tengo tutto io per me. Bling a tutto spiano. La 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 la. VIP ci siamo. La 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 la. Seta sulla pelle. Come le modelle. Sono la star.
The Working Audio Tools podcast is brought to you in association with our friends at DistroKid for all of your musical distribution needs. For a little bit more, $39.99 a month, you can have 2 artists on your roster, which includes everything just mentioned. Additionally, synced lyrics in Apple Music, further streaming analytics statistics. You can create a customizable record name. Mine, for example, is Ed Thorne Rhythm and Records. And you can customize release dates, pre-order dates, iTunes pricing, and again, much more. Now, if you're an artist manager or a record label, the Ultimate Bundle gives you up to 100 artists for just $89.99 a year. And you get 1 terabyte of instant file sharing, which is useful, but also contact information for thousands of playlist curators on Spotify. This is really useful so you can pitch your artist music to playlist curators around the world. Only available in the Ultimate Bundle from DistroKid. All right, so hopefully you can hear where Paul has taken his mix compared to his first draft of that. For me, what really stood out on your second one was you did something to get a load of movement and swagger in the bass that wasn't there before. I think bringing it in,
Yeah, I agree.
it almost gave it more lilt, and I was wanting to move side to side to it. So what did you do to do that?
Genuinely just took this with stage 1 just and brought it back a little bit. I think that was no. I'll tell you what else I did because I think you got in my head.
Sound.
Yeah, because you got in my head a little bit with the bass where you said you felt that the bass was a little bit muddy. So I got Emra's detroubler plugin. I keep on telling people like if I want less mud, less boom, less honk, less whatever, I just go to that and I just went mud and I just went right okay, cranked it and it just dynamically took them the mud, which would have been to the bark scale, and that was the thing. I think I just brought it down, rebalanced it, but I think what had also helped was I took your kick a lot to heart, so I knew that for me you nailed the kick in my opinion. So all I genuinely did was went to the kick, added a whole ton of I think it was 4 dB at 2K, and I just gave it that upper mid-range knock, which I think meant it wasn't clashing as much with the bass. And then, again, there was certain tweaks I made, but it's hard to, what it's like when you're doing a little bit of a remix and you just naturally tweak little things. You're just using your ears in real time. And yeah, there was maybe slight little adjustments that I made, but the big ones were less width, less mud in the bass, and then changing the kick. And then also, because Emra had said to me he wanted more top end and a little bit more percussive elements. So you wanted a little bit more of the claps, a little bit more top end of the claps. So I did that as well. And I noticed that, in my opinion, the hats weren't as loud as they should have been in my mix. So I brought up the hats quite a lot as well, but still trying to kind of keep them back with a little bit of depth. And then I think in the chorus, I made the chorus a little bit louder, I think, and I took off all the reverb that I had on it. And I added a little bit more top end to the vocal, because I thought maybe you just could have had a little bit more. And I made it louder as well. So that one is at -9, I think, as well.
Yeah, your revision came in louder than mine, because I actually backed mine off. Yeah, I backed mine off, I think, hitting the limiter 2 dB, and because it was just saturating slightly, but I might dial back in half a dB for my portfolio mix. Well, actually, we should ask Bobby if we can use these, but that's another thing. We'll talk about that off air. So, Paul, what were your thoughts on my revision?
Much better. Like, I listened to it, and straight away there wasn't anything that was like taking my attention in a bad way. I think that bringing the limiting back definitely helped, because I'm not hearing any distortion. I'm not hearing anything overly pushed. I could hear that you've brought the more kind of ethereal elements in, where before it was like just like boom, 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 and then it was like drums and bass, and the vocals were there. You've brought the vocals more out, so I'm hearing the vocals more in the mix, and you've brought the side elements in a little bit more. It's less monocentric sounding now. It's still got that kind of center focus, but it's not as monocentric as it was before. And yeah, I think the only thing that I maybe would have changed a little bit was I felt that the brass in the pre-chorus is maybe a little bit washed out. I don't know if maybe you added a bit too much reverb to it, or you've done something to it. I don't know if you've maybe took on my conversation about depth and you've kind of like over smoothed it, but it feels like it's missing that kind of rasp in the brass there, and it just sounds a little bit.
If I touched the brass, to be honest,
really, it's just something, because I think in the master especially, and I think Bobby's mix, there's a bit of a, I'd call it a rasp.
Yeah,
there's just a little bit. There's a bit of a percussive rasp to it, and it was like, I don't even think I got that right. So again, I don't know if it was maybe a thing where maybe get a transient designer in it and just add just a touch of attack, just to kind of make it kind of.
I think I could dial that
not
back
the right
in
word
for sure.
but yeah.
Give it some sizzle.
Yeah, but sizzle.
Yeah,
were they programmed brass instruments?
They were, unfortunately, as much as I would love to get like real brass players to record them.
I was going to say, because I tell you, regarding the rasp, what the rasp is in brass is it's the air distorting going down the metal tubes coming out, and if you really push that air down, you get that raspy, but basically turbulent air, causing that. So they've sampled those well, I think.
Yeah.
It was good. Yeah, added a little bit of distortion to them, like a touch, just to give them a bit more sparkle in that sort of section.
What did you use for
as
that?
well? I'm quite obsessed with Thermal by Output. It's one of my favourite plugins as a producer.
I don't think we know that, but I'm going to Google that right now. Speaking of plugins, do you use Stage 1 that Paul has referred to several times now?
I've not used Stage 1 before.
Okay. So this is Paul's magic, well, and mine as well now, magic trick for widening things, adding mono spread and depth. And it's fascinating how one plugin can manipulate how wide something sits, how far back it sits, how wide things go, and the combinations of, and also how it can actually slightly shape the sound. So it works off, is it first reflections?
Earlier, so the depth is manipulating earlier reflections, which is the whole Bruce Swedien thing. So Bruce Swedien, he was, when he did all the Michael Jackson records and stuff like that, he was one of the first people that would intentionally mic, like dual mic, but like mic a little bit further away, so he could then bring the fader back and forth and play with like the position to add a little bit of early reflection. And he found that if you add in just enough early reflection, you can then make things sit back. It kind of smears the image a certain way. And then Jason Joshua did it at Abbey Road. So he did it with the hi-hats. So he was using Waves True Verb, and it was just like really, really short reverb times, and just using enough just to play with early reflections. And that's what I was saying last week about contrast and, depth in so many mixes is all about front and back. But a lot of the times it's, again, something has to be punchy, something has to have attack, and something has to have less attack for you to have that feeling of front and back. If you've got a lot of attack, then something's going to sit right in front of you. Like if you think about, I can't even say it, it's annoying, but I was watching Mix with the Masters. It's because it's Something in Paradise. It's a Kanye West song. You can imagine why I can't say the full track name. something in Paradise. But when I watched that mix with the masters, they were talking about how genuinely all they did was just pull text and transient designers. And when you watch Mix with the Masters and you listen to it, you can hear them genuinely getting like the SPL transient designer with the attack knob and just going attack, attack, attack. Because that whole track, like dum 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 dum, the whole thing is just like that. But with having certain elements so up front and with so much attack, when they add reverbs to other things, that just really means they could sit things further back. And yeah, that's just, if anybody's wanting to add depth, just know that if you overcompress everything, you don't leave a lot of transients in certain things, and you overcompress the schnizzle out of things, as Warren Hewitt likes to say, and you overwash everything with reverb, everything's either just, if you add too much attack to everything, everything's just going to be super forward. If you add too much reverb and overcompress things and don't have enough transients in, everything's going to sit further back. So you need that contrast to be able to play with front and back.
I was going to suggest we do a whole episode on it, but you've just summarised
it
in about 2 minutes. So
I know, I just summarised it.
Transients.
2 weeks, there you go.
Big time.
we can come back to that. So do you have any more thoughts and feedback on the mixes? Because I'd love to pick your brains about getting into sync and monitoring.
I think I've pretty much mentioned everything I wanted to mention about these mixes, to be honest. One thing I wanted to say, like, to Paul as well about these mixes, I really like the percussive elements, which you mentioned a few minutes ago. Like you said, like, you increased the top end of the hi-hats and some percussion, which again is super, super cool, because as a producer, I'm super obsessed with like percussion in songs. Like I love Timbaland as a producer, and he's been another big influence on me, and he loves his percussion. So when I add percussion to any track I'm working on, I'm always thinking of Timbaland. I'm like, what would he do if he was producing this track? So it was nice to hear like you increase the percussion there, because I'm like, oh, yes.
Close to your heart. So actually, two more questions before we talk about sync. So the mixes on the track, is that the mix that you did, the one that's gone on to out for mastering and been released?
I can't remember what exactly I sent you. I think I just sent you like a bounce of the stems as they were without the processing. Yeah, there was a slightly different mix that went into mastering, just because I sent it in a slightly different way again, just to give it the creative freedom to do your thing with the mix. Okay,
but you did the mix that has been released?
Yeah.
Amazing. And if you, as a producer, were looking for other mix engineers, or in the past when you've used mix engineers and you've preferred one over another, what is it you're looking for as a producer?
It's a great question. I think one thing that's really important to me is how they interpret what I tell them I want from the particular track. And let's say I describe the way I want the song to sound, give them the references and send them the mix. And for me, like, super important how they interpret this and how they communicate it through the way they mix the song. I think that's one of the top things for me, because I've had instances where I've worked with mix and mastering engineers in the past, and we've been going back and forth, tweaking various things of the mix to the point where I've said, do you know what, let's knock this one on the head, just because it's kind of becoming counterproductive at this point, and it feels like we're spending a lot of time on the mix trying to get to a certain place, but we're not actually getting to it. And that was a reason, like, why I kind of wanted to learn about mixing in the first place, just because, again, similar to production, I wanted to have this sort of way of applying myself to that mix and be like, okay, I'm hearing what I'm hearing in my head, let me just put it down on paper. And don't get me wrong, I still like work with like mixing engineers or send things to people to mix. If it's out of my lane, I will send it to someone else to mix. Like, for example, some of the cinematic stuff that we've done, I would send to like other people to mix. They're like specializing in this sort of field, because sometimes I'm like, do you know what, I'd rather someone else do it than me. I don't want to butcher it. I hope that answers your question. It's a bit of a long answer to it.
Yeah, it's kind of like what we would look for in a mastering engineer. You know, someone who's going to get the vision and not completely
screw with it.
Butcher it. And impose their own ego and, you know, ideas on it and make big changes that aren't the intention of the track. Intention's a big word we've been chatting about recently. Any questions, Paul, before I carry on?
What I would say is, honestly, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to work on the track, and also for giving us feedback on both mixes. It's really, really important for us to get this feedback from artists, two from producers, and again, the person that mixed the song as well, because obviously you've produced and mixed it as well. So again, I think it's great to have all of these different versions and all of these kind of different aspects of translation, because there were certain things in my mix that translated really well for you, and there's certain things in Ed's mix that translated well for you. So yeah, music's a subjective thing, and I think that's something that me and Ed forget, because we get so focused on like, yeah, the mix can't be shit. We've got to impress everybody, when you know at the end of the day, it's music is so subjective, and all you've got to do is just, you know, make the artist producer happy. You've got one person or a group of people to make happy, and fucking who cares? Yeah.
You hit the nail on the head there. And honestly, guys, you've smashed it. Like, so thanks so much for working on these songs, and for allowing me the opportunity to be part of a podcast as well. Like, it's so cool, honestly.
Well, while you're here, it has just occurred to me how annoyingly talented you are, actually, because I've recorded you in the studio and that sounded amazing. You've written this track, you've produced it, and you've mixed it. I'd say round of applause. But
yeah, no, it's hard to do. That's
a lot of skills to have developed to that standard. So yeah,
especially when you can get so close to it. I mean, I had the amount of times me and you have tried our own stuff in the past, and you get so close to it that when it comes to the mixing stage, you're like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing now.
Yeah,
like
I'm there again
lost.
now. I'm working on one. one of my old tracks. So
it's a tricky one, yeah. But I think taking time and taking air breaks is like super important to actually come back to a song with fresh ears. Because like, I'm sure you both have been in this sort of boat. You get so consumed by working on a particular track that you lose the objectivity and you can't judge it clearly, and you have to like step out, maybe send it to someone else to like hear it for you and tell you, okay, you need to like address these things, and then you kind of get the sort of external input. And as I say, like with my best friend, like, I will send him something and he'll be like, nah, you need to like shut this down.
Shut it down.
So what's your monitoring setup? Because producers are known for mixing on KRK rockets.
Fun speakers, as people like to call them.
Scooped, hyped.
Okay, so I have two ways, like, because I work from home, and I would either mix it on my headphones, or I will either go to a studio that's like more properly treated to hear it on their speakers. So when I produce songs, most of the times I actually prefer to mix them on headphones, which is probably a weird thing to some people to hear, because they're expecting everyone to
one
mix.
of the biggest advocates for headphone mixing here. Ed's now, even with his Amphians and fucking his heads, even he's getting more and more into headphone mixing all the time.
Yeah, I just find it like so creatively liberating, and I've got a pair of Daisy headphones that I use to reference when I mix songs.
Which ones?
But oh God.
And have you got the Adam SP5s on now?
Audio Technica.
Yeah, the M50s, I think.
Or Daisy LCD X.
Yeah, the staple, the standard, yeah.
Yeah, these bad boys. And yeah, I kind of like shift between the two to like address certain elements of songs that I mix. So yeah, it kind of works for me. I guess everyone's different and they prefer different ways of mixing. So it's always a bit of a careful one to say, oh, I mix this way. People be like, ooh. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
And I'm surprised Paul hasn't asked this yet, but are you EQing them to a Harman curve or something? And do you have a headphone amp, or are you going off an interface for this?
Mainly interface, yeah. And I would just like listen to like certain sections in isolation just to like get levels and volumes and everything in place. So yeah, it's probably slightly unorthodox approach to it.
Yeah, that's what we say all the time. That's why even on my Discord all the time, I'm trying to say to them, look, as much as me and Emra advise you when you get the right amp, especially the right EQ, I'm like, if you can get the mixes to translate, don't touch it. Don't fix what isn't broken. If it works for you, then that's what you need to focus on. If it's not working for you, then yeah, you can try X, Y, Z approach. But at the end of the day, if it's working for you, man, you know what I mean? Keep doing what you're doing.
I like keeping things simple just because I'm one of those people. To anyone who's listening to this and watching it, if they can relate to this, like when I'm presented with too many options and too many creative solutions, I'm finding it hard to navigate them just because you end up tweaking things, you end up hearing things in a different way. And a month's gone by and you're still working on the mix and it's not completed. And for me, it's all about productivity and finalizing projects and keeping it productive, as opposed to like stagnating over the course of time just because you're like stalled by, I don't know, creative solutions, gear or monitoring and stuff. So yeah, again, I send it to people for feedback all the time, even when I'm mixing stuff and just like asking for opinions. And yeah, it's super important for me to kind of like ask other people how they hear it, because at the end of the day, we're doing it for the audience, for the public, and they're going to listen to it. So I'm always trying to like put myself in other people's shoes when I'm working on something and not just have my sort of creative ego. Oh yeah, I'm just doing it for me. And totally. If I like it, that's it. Do you know what I mean? Because it's so easy, especially when you're creative and you're doing like production, mixing, writing, singing, to be like, do you know what? I'm just going to do it the way I want it. And I don't care what people say, but it's actually important to run it by other people. Yeah, big time.
So tell us about your YouTube channel.
So my YouTube channel, like, it was dead up until a few months ago, to be honest, and I really wanted to like bring it back to life, because I've been doing like work with like different people, different songs that I've produced in the past, and I've started like trying to build in to like talk about songs that I've worked on and to kind of like do like breakdowns of tunes that I've worked on and what's gone down.
Yeah, those videos are really good.
Thank you. What ideas I've had and why I've done what I've done, just because I thought it might be nice for whoever's interested to like check it out, maybe get some value out of it, because again, it's a creative process. Even if you just get an idea out of it as a little inspiration, my job's done there. Do you know what I mean? Because it's so subjective. Like music is subjective, but I wanted to basically do these sort of videos on my channel where like run people through the process of like producing a song for artists that I've worked with, like Sonictron's part of it as well, when I've done stuff for the duo, and I've done some videos on sync as well, like what's important in sync and how my brain's thinking when it comes to sync and what I've learned as well in the process, like some mistakes that I've made and lessons that have been really valuable along the way. So yeah, I've tried to provide value for people through it. Yeah, essentially. I think that's the bottom line, similar to what you guys are doing with the podcast, talking about mixes and like how you mix certain things. And yeah,
I will leave a link in the description to Bobby's YouTube channel. It is very informative. So that was a seamless link to sync, which I've promised to talk about. Because sync seems to be the one area left where it's actually profitable in music. With, we could go into the pitfalls of how expensive touring is and how much labels are trying to bite into touring profits and so on. Whereas I sync and publishing are where a lot of people can still make money, because there's so much content, television shows, movies still going out. Yeah. It's amazing. And a lot of it is still people using humans to create that. AI hasn't quite taken over the library music scene yet, I don't think, as far as I know. Maybe you know better, as much as we first feared it would a year or two ago. So what's been your approach to getting into sync? How have you done it? Tell us a bit more about your journey to getting this placement on one of the biggest TV shows, which is incredible.
Yeah, well, it's been a journey in itself, let me tell you this. Like, I first learned about sync during the pandemic, actually, in 2020.
like the rest of the world.
Yeah. I mean, part of me knew about sync without knowing about sync before that, if that makes sense, because obviously you hear the songs, you hear the music, and you don't really think about it, if that makes sense. You kind of like take it for granted. And then it wasn't until 2020 when Gloria, my music partner with Sonictron, texted me one day and she was like, I've been having this idea to start this project. Do you want to be part of it? And we started it as a sync project where we were going to like create music to pitch to various agencies, supervisors, and any sort of projects that required the music that we were making. We started making like dark pop / cinematic stuff. That was the vibe that we were trying to communicate through the music. And then we just started learning all about like the technicalities of it, the business side, what people are looking for, how to deliver music, and what actually made music syncable, which was like the biggest thing that we had to learn, and I'm still learning. Don't get me wrong. Like I don't know anything. Sorry, I don't know everything. There's so much to learn about sync and the industry because things are constantly changing and genres are coming in and out and different tastes are being formed by culture. And sync really reflects that, which is one of the most exciting things about it because you have to be switched on all the time.
Wow.
So we just started like watching various webinars, going to like panels whenever possible, obviously after the pandemic, because nothing was happening during the pandemic when it comes to in-person events. So it's been a very sort of mixed approach. And then I got so invested into sync that actually got involved with a few agencies on the business side and started working with them and working with like their rosters and helping with the catalogs and the whole sync journey. So it's been really, really fascinating for me and I love sync so much. And I definitely like recommend whoever's watching this channel and is really serious about their music and want to make music their career to really explore sync unless they already do so.
Cool.
Well done, Ed. That was a fucking great fucking... I thought you were a way to go into that there and like
No,
have
I
a
got
fucking
nothing.
patch of wisdom. Jesus
It was all
Christ.
said.
Okay, know what? I've got one question then, and
Hit
don't
me.
fuck and don't fuck. We'll edit this bit. Don't be a cunt with this, right?
Oh,
Because I'm interested in this, right? Right, you ready?
I'll have a drink.
Okay. So I've got one question, and I'll keep it brief because the internet hates it, right? But with the sync thing, is there a little bit more opportunity for people that with Atmos? Do you know do you have a little bit of a better opportunity with Atmos in the sync? Just because I'm thinking Netflix, I'm thinking maybe certain shows that might be, have that element. Is there a better opportunity for people in that world?
There is definitely opportunity with Atmos, and it's definitely more with like the trailer space.
Yeah,
just
that's what
because
I
you're
was
working with various like cinematic elements, and obviously you have your Dolby and various spatial audio elements that you're considering. Not so much with songs as of yet. Like I haven't been told that people are looking for like Atmos songs, if that makes sense. I know Apple Music does it as part of their platform, but sync is still pretty much like stereo, and even if you submit like a stereo master, it will still work for sync unless you're working with like the director of a movie and they specifically requested some elements to come in and out of certain spaces, places. And there's definitely opportunity, but it's not a deal breaker. Do you know what I mean? If it's not Atmos.
Yeah. But that's good to know about the trailer side of it, because that is something that Paul Ashmore talked a lot about, wasn't it, Ed? When we had Paul Ashmore on from Audio Animals and he was talking about a lot of the trailer stuff that they do. And because sometimes I do it, like I'm looking right across right now in my Atmos room and I'm like, I've not been in my Atmos room for like 2.5 weeks. I'm like, what a waste of money. But
Really?
what am I doing with it at the end of the day? I'm not pushing it as I should. And it's in the end of the day, the only way you get the most out of something is investing time and effort into it. And I'm just focusing so much on the stereo stuff that I'm kind of leaving that stuff aside. So again, maybe I need to do a bit of rabbit hole and look into the trailer side, try and do a few practice mixes and get if I can find stems or whatever, get trailer stuff done to try and see if I can, maybe get into that. Maybe that's another avenue that I can get into, which you got to make money.
100%.
Yeah, you got to make money in these days.
There's so many different like companies that specialize in trailers, promos, and they're constantly like looking for like external contractors and people to work with. Because when it comes to like mixing and mastering, obviously it's all on a freelance basis.
Yep.
It's very rare these days for a company to actually hire someone in-house to do these things. And there's a company called Riot Games. They like produce games in like some of the like biggest games out there, like League of Legends, Valorant, and they have like in-house team of composers, mixers that will do things. But like normally agencies will have their personnel that will do these things, but it's on a regular basis. It's pretty much freelancers doing things for specific projects.
Are you releasing your sync tracks to library music platforms as well?
We're not, to be honest, just because we're trying to keep things very intentional with the way we make music and how we approach it when it comes to sync. What we've realized is that we actually want to focus on sync agencies that we can actually build relationships with and obtain more specific information about specific searches, specific songs or tracks they're looking for, because sometimes you just need an instrumental track for a specific thing. Let's say if you work on an ad, it will most likely be an instrumental 30-second jingle they're going to produce for this particular project. So sync agencies, in my opinion, are what we're focusing on at the moment. We've done stuff for libraries, we still do. But if we're talking about like long-term and longevity of what you're doing in the sync space, I think sync agencies are a great way to build these relationships with people, because like it's all about relationships in this industry, as we know.
Yeah.
And without them, it's so much harder, no matter how good your music might be and what great tracks you might be sitting on in a hard drive. If people can't hear them, or if people haven't got this relationship with you, it's really hard to actually push these tracks forward. So yeah, but as I said, like music libraries are a great way, great passive income as well down the line, because you put your track in a library, it can get used numerous times in various different scenarios, and you don't have to do anything because you've already done it.
Yeah, there was
So
a
you just
track
get the
I found on Epidemic Sounds, which is what I've used for YouTube for a few years, that I heard maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And then I started hearing it on television adverts and in television shows, and I was like, oh my God, this guy or whoever it is, girl, they or them, have put this track online maybe 5 years ago, and now it's blowing up. And I know from a friend of mine used to play for a band called The Egg, and they had one song, I can't remember the name of it, it was on a television advert, started off just in the UK, then it was Europe, then it was global. Those guys lived off that song for about 10 years. You just need one thing, and they didn't.
Sometimes it is, yeah. If you get the right project and the right environment, that's it. Like, Imagine Dragons, for example, they're the perfect example with this, because they're like one of the most like sync friendly band out there. Like a lot of their music is being used in sync.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just want to be right, one hit wonder. I want one mix or one track. Just I'll be fine with that.
Because know what that reminds me of? Do you all remember? Now this is like my autism, like Rain Man coming in. Right, I just have random things. Do you all remember a band called Benjuin Soundclash? And they had one number one hit, and it was on, I think it was like a T-Mobile ad. And like that was the only song they had. And just when I was sitting there thinking, I was like, without that song being on that T-Mobile ad, that would not have got a number one. It would not have been everywhere in the world. I don't know what they did after that, but that song was called, you'll remember it because it's like, on the mountain, slapping it down, na. People say, when the night hears my song. When the night hears my song. And that was everywhere. And it's because my wife said to me last week, she's like, how could you remember who sung that, Paul? They had one song that was on a T-Mobile ad. I was like, autism, baby. There you go. But look, what it goes to show is that, look, as much me and Ed don't talk about it enough, and it's great to have Bobby on to talk about it. And so we do advise you to check out his channel and to check all that stuff out, because, as Ed said, it's a difficult world these days, and any way you can get your name out there, get your songs out there, and make some passive income and make money from this gig, it's a very, very tough gig, the music and audio industry. So yeah,
it is. And if I can add one more thing about sync, is it's a long game for sure, and it's about volume. And what I mean by this is like, keep building a catalog, keep bashing them tracks out, because you never know like when the opportunity is going to strike. Keep getting them licensed with different agencies. And it was so weird though, like a few months ago, the end of March, I think, must have been the end of March, I got a text from an agency that we're working with, and the message saying like one of our songs got chosen for an American TV show that's due to come later this year. I can't divulge much just because the show's not out yet. But what I'm trying to say is the song that got chosen was a song that I just wrote randomly one day. I just had an inspiration, and like when you hear a certain melody, certain lyric in your head, and I just put it to paper. or put it in your DAW, whatever, if you're producing it. And I didn't think anything of it. And I was like, let me just put it forward for this thing. And then I got the text and it just happened. And it's so bizarre how these things work sometimes when you least expect them. The way I always try to like think about Sing, for example, is work on a song, pitch it, forget about it, keep working on the next thing, keep building. Because if you get too emotionally invested, you get frustrated if things don't get like don't work according to plan, and you kind of lose that motivation. And it's nice to like work on something, finish it, submit it, next thing, and before you know it, you've got 50, 100 tracks plus whatever. And you just have to keep it consistent, because otherwise no one cares. Do you know what I mean? If you don't care, why do you want people to?
It's the same with mixing. You've just got to be mixing every day. Every day.
That's
it's
it.
the only way the only thing it takes to get good at it.
That's what I mean. You
100%.
need to do, Ed. We need to start. I've had a whole album, like 15, 20 tracks, sat there for years and years, and I've never done anything with it. I started it and then gotten down the whole mixing journey again, and we need to do that. We need to, even just if it's like one song a month, just record it, leave it there, go back to it, mix it.
Well, people are screaming for us to collaborate on a mix at least, but we
Come on.
Yes. But we could do it on a track, Paul. I'll record the drums, you do the rest of it.
Yeah, we should do that, because we did that before. I released a song and Ed done the drums for it, but we could actually properly collaborate on a track and have like us just infuse.
I would love to hear that. Come on, you should make this happen.
Yeah.
Like, this is the episode where people actually have the visual proof they're going to do it. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm currently sat on about 10 songs I want to work on. And actually, Bobby, I did think, because I've sent you one before, haven't I, to listen to?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was moving house, so I didn't have the budget for it at the time. But I've actually thought of another song that I think, well, I'll talk about it off air, but it's got something naively endearing about it. But I lost the original session. I had a duplicate file and I deleted one of them, and actually that was a whole load of, like a whole album's worth of sessions, so that was a bit of a painful experience. So we'd need totally recreating, but yeah, because you were talking about programmed drums, and I was like, I really went to town programming loads of stereo percussive elements, so I'll send it in.
Yeah. Send it my way.
Off air in case you think it's shit.
And on that bombshell, Ed, I think that's probably
On that
time.
song shell.
Yeah, and that song shell.
Song shell.
I'm off.
Shite patter. Shite patter. That's been emotional. Your shite patter makes me so emotional. So
Funny.
yeah, so there you go. Again, Bobby, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for coming on. And again, thank you so much for allowing us to work on this amazing track. So I'm Paul Third. That's Bobby /Mation Blue. Check him out on YouTube. We'll leave the links in the description. And yeah, I'll leave you with Ed's shite patters. Any more shite patter you want to leave the audience with this week?
I'm done. It's been emotional. Thank you, Bobby.
Bye-bye.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Thank you, guys.